I hope that's dead. Let's leave the car.
I'll come round here, let the whole. A couple of the lads in the back are just coming round too. Right. Dennis, get the whole. Ordús, chuir mí agah ach an duine teach an seo nniu for Kenya and agóid sin. Come let's go, ach an duine.
Kevin.
Just a few things I just like to make clear here before we start the night's event is that first of all, chuir mí agah ach an duine for everybody coming here, and while we're here, we have to bear in mind hopefully there's going to be a bit of a crowd staying overnight, and if people are staying overnight, just be conscious that it's a residential area in which we're having this vigil. We also want our critics, as we know ourselves, not that they're going to dictate what any policies that we have, anything we do, but we as Republicans just have to be conscious of this when we're here, not to leave the site the way we found it here today. And so when we're finished tomorrow, make sure it's kept as clean as what it is tonight here. And also 1 o'clock tomorrow, if anybody's here or any people aren't here, you know, friends and comrades who may come, for 1 o'clock we're going to have a leaflet drop over the shopping centre, Sainsbury's, so to give out leaflets and such like. So, Kabir B, I just also want to make a point for any of you looking around the crowd here. See a lot of people go to protests, go to vigils, go to talks and such like. This site we're on here was the old RUC, Andersonstown RUC barracks, and it was here for almost 100 years, and it's the symbolism of it shouldn't be lost on us. The very fact that we're standing here, where men and women were brought to this barracks, interrogated, before getting brought to the likes of Palace Barracks, then Castlereagh and such like. And the very fact that this is away here, it shouldn't be lost on people there, because a lot of their barracks have been closed. We're turning around talking about closing other barracks. We should not lose sight of the fact that there's MI5, there's Special Branch, there's peelers, British soldiers, and all the usual suspects, the usual enemies are running about our streets, hiding here. So we'll have to be part of that in mind as well. And just as we saw here, and I see people here from North Belfast, because it's happened around our doing, this is what has come out officially here this week, the number of stop and searches, which are in 4,500, 5,000. Because it happens in our doing, that doesn't mean to say it's not going to happen in other parts of the 6 counties, and as we know, the Free State are in collusion with the British here, and whatever policies they bring out up here, the same as in Britain, they replicate them in the Free State. And as we know, people just looking around here tonight, some people have been arrested and lifted in the Free State, the same as people have been arrested and brought to barracks here in the north, as well as jail. We don't have any names, we're just the usual people here. Anyway, just very, very briefly, just going to read a short piece out I wrote here, and I'm hoping that Stephen Francis Bundy here, obviously I don't know what he's going to talk about. Anyway, since our country was occupied by Strongbow and subsequent British regimes, we have seen the imprisonment of various women and men who have fought in many rebellions against the occupation. The jails and prison camps were full of people who were held for years. Since our country was partitioned, both the Free Staters and the British have in turn Republicans, and while incarcerated, protests have taken place both inside and outside of the jails, and the same as what we're doing here tonight. And it's important for us to remember the very fact there are men and women in jails throughout the 32 counties. Obviously the main jails are McGarry, Highbank and Port Alicia, and Mountjoy, we know a couple of Republican women are there as well. And the very fact that people are still protesting in jail, this shouldn't be lost in people either, because of the way the media, the way our adversaries, I'm using that term very lightly, give the impression that everything is sorted out here. We all know the very fact we're standing here, it's not sorted out. The Catholic Church and establishment parties supported those very governments while referring to the prisoners as criminals. Looking around here tonight, I see many whose grandparents, parents and other family members were imprisoned. Indeed, some of you, just looking around here again, as I said earlier, have been in jail sometimes for months. A lot of you have been in jail for years throughout the country and obviously in Britain and such like. Even today, our detractors refer to us and our imprisoned friends and comrades as criminals, but they can throw any label at us because we know that if we lived in a democratic society, those very people will not see the inside of jails. That's the people who are in jails now. Obviously we don't live in a democracy, no matter what the great and the good may say. Simply because people have a vote, what does that mean? That doesn't mean to say we live in a democracy, in my humble opinion. The state will imprison not only socialists, Republicans, but also trade unionists and human rights activists and others who campaign for justice. In recent years, we have heard some of our former comrades claim that internment is no longer used, but because the state may say they don't use internment anymore, we would argue with them. People are lifted and charged with under spurious charges and held for months, and in many cases for years, before those charges are withdrawn. Since the late 1990s, many more laws have been brought in which give the judiciary and their police forces carte blanche to arrest and imprison people. So it is important for us to take to the streets, hold events like this, and organise locally in support of the Anti Internment League. If we bury our head in the sand and do nothing, the state and those who uphold it will think they have us proud. We are very far from proud. So at every opportunity, shout from the rooftops and tell the Brits and the Free Staters we are off our knees and we are the risen people. So Chucky Arla. And when I say Chucky Arla, that's not just a cliche. Chucky Arla. So just the man standing on my right here is obviously older than me, and he says I'm his son. You know, both of our class will have white hair. That's the only thing we'll have in common, apart from being Republicans. I'm from Belfast and a million more things. Anyway, just like to introduce you, Francie McGuigan.
Glad to see such a crowd here tonight in spite of the weather now. This internment did not start on the 9th of August 1971. It started 800 years ago, as Pat said, when Strongbow invaded in Ireland. And in the intervening centuries since, they have murdered, robbed, plundered and raped our country. They have imprisoned our people, our men, our women, our children. And after Strongbow, the next big event that came along, they sent Oliver Cromwell to try and finish the job. He ransacked Drogheda, he punished and murdered the length and breadth of Ireland. Those that he didn't murder, he sold into slavery 500,000 Irish men, women and children to Barbados and the Caribbean, where Irish names still exist today. After that came the 1640s. Again, Cromwell had done that to the length and breadth of Ireland. Then in 1798, again the Yeoman Cavalry came in to put down an Irish uprising, and again they slaughtered, murdered, imprisoned men, women and children. Again in 1803, the entire Anne Devlin family were imprisoned. She had a brother died in prison. She spent 2.5 years in solitary confinement, something similar to her own Marion Price in recent years, so not much has changed in that aspect. In 1916, they executed our leaders, imprisoned 3,500 men, most again without trial. In 1919, they brought in the Black and Tans to carry on that murder campaign here in Ireland. And in Belfast here, and in other parts of the 6 occupied counties, they used the murder gangs comprising of the RUC under the control of Nixon. This went on during that time too. They burned out the Catholic homes in Lisburn. They interned Irish men and Irish women again throughout that period. They've done it again in the 20s, the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, and brought it back in the 1970s. And it still exists today. During the Internment in 1971. I was arrested on the 9th of August, along with one or two other faces that I see about here. And that internment lasted, they say, until 1975. I do not believe it is over. What they have done now, they have changed the names. This man, Kevin Holloway, went to sleep one night in Long Cash, wakened up the following morning and told he was no longer in Long Cash. He was in Her Majesty's Prison, the Maze. Changed the name. Another morning he was awakened and told he was not an internee anymore, he was a detainee. Changed the name. We don't have the RUC today, we have the PSNI. Another change of name. The difference in the RUC today, people tell me the whole thing has changed. Yes, things have changed. The names have changed, nothing else. In the 1970s, the RUC were controlled by the Minister for Home Affairs. Today they're controlled by MI5. That hasn't changed, and these things are still going on. The changes that come about over the years, they're name changes. Take Stormont. We have name changes in Stormont now. We have Kelly's in Stormont. We have Moskies in Stormont. We have Luan's in Stormont. And it hasn't changed too that much either. And as I say about the change the name from internees, because the world had condemned Britain for what you had done in Ireland. They changed Long Cash because they'd been coming throughout the world, recognised as a concentration camp, so they changed the name there too. They changed it from internee to detainee. Today they don't even use the term detainee, they use remandee in my opinion. And that's where you're picked up, as Pat said, on scurrilous charges, put into prison and held maybe 2.5, 3 years, awaiting trial and possibly just the case dismissed. I had a brother of mine in 1971, the same procedure happened. He had 186 charges against him. He spent 1.5 years in remand in Crumlin Road Prison. The day he was brought into court for trial, the Crown prosecution withdrew the charges. He was immediately arrested and sent to Long Cash. I'm the eldest of seven children. My mother and father, that was 9 in the family. Each member of my family has been in prison. My father has been interned on 3 separate occasions. My mother has been imprisoned on 3 separate occasions. I have been interned, as have 5 of my brothers. 7 of our family have spent time in internment, and only 2 of the family ever sentenced. So I think it's important that we get the message across that things have not changed. Names have changed, and that's the only change that I can see. Things are no different. I stood in protests back in 1970, 71, and I stood in protests in the years intervening since on the same thing, the treatment of Republican prisoners. And on the treatment of Republican prisoners, in McGabry today, what the lads are going through, this is something that Republicans have fought for generations to get. In the present stage of the struggle, Billy McKee went on a hunger strike in 1972 to win political status, got it. The Brits took it away again in 76. And in the interim period from then to now, we lost 10 friends and comrades fighting for that same right. And I only hope and pray that it doesn't get to that serious situation again. This has been earned by Republicans. We are not criminals. We are Republicans. We stand by the Republican traditions. We are honourable, honest people. And I think that we must give a great support to the prisoners today and every day. And as I say, any protest you see about or hear about, attend them, come along, and bear in mind the only things that have changed are names. Everything else still remains the same. Sinead.
Francie, just before we finish, just like to thank people. I've just seen the car registrations of some of the cars here from places in the Searstad, obviously from different places throughout the north. And it's also great to see people from different organisations, people from different parties, and that, in my opinion, that's the way it should be. That we all have some political differences. That's accepted as we were all just sitting and having a debate here. We're not going to agree on every single thing. But the one thing I will argue that we have to be to the fore of as often as possible, as many times as possible, is supporting political prisoners. Political prisoners, whatever jail they happen to be in, because without us being on the streets here, without us having this vigil, without us reading the newspapers. Obviously we have a hostile media that don't publish a fraction of the articles and letters that we put out, but there's social media and such like, and it's important for us to keep it up and keep making people aware that there are protests, there are prisoners, because as Francie was saying there, for some people think the situation has changed, and the great and the good, people up in Stormont, people in Leinster House, and a lot of councils throughout the 32 counties want to give the impression that we have peace in this country, simply because a lot of people who were in jail, and to their shame, they are now, some of the people who were talking about hunger strikers, some of the people who spent a long time in jail and throughout Britain and Ireland, are now referring to not only the people in jails, but referring to people like us that were involved in the Anti Internment League march in Ardoyne. This year, no doubt, they're going to get snide remarks, cynical remarks about us. We shouldn't let that worry us. See, what we know what we're doing is right, and we are right. Excuse my language, fuck them. And that's what we should be doing. We're going to be the story of this year. So turn me to my other.
You'll be right in the phone.